Today's tip is about hurricane preparedness. Hi, it's me, Linda Burhans, the gal who cares for the caregivers with love, laughter, and lessons learned. Today we're going to talk with my friend Jason Martino about hurricane preparedness.
Hello there, I'm Jason Martino. I'm the Director of Planning and also the Emergency Coordinating Officer for the Area Agency on Aging covering 2 counties in Florida, Pinellas and Pasco County. And today what I wanted to talk to you about is hurricane preparation, or really disaster all hazards preparation, if you will. I want to try to make this as simple as possible so you can have the best plans ever in the event that you're affected by an imminent threat. So one of the first things that we have to know is when is the actual hurricane season in the state of Florida, and really mainly in the southeastern United States. Well, that starts June the 1st and it ends on November 30th. So it's really important to be aware of when the season is, because things start to escalate a little bit closer that we get to November 30th. So one of the tips that I wanted to give to you today was the simplistic ways that you could prepare for hurricane season, or really all hazards, if you will, and not see it as something cumbersome or frustrating for you. The very first thing that I would tell you that you should do in preparation is you should understand what your most potential threat or hazard is. So in the state of Florida, especially if you live on the coast like we do over here, our biggest threat is water. So we really take in consideration what our evacuation levels are. And those evacuation levels are all predicated on the fact that how much water is going to come inland from either the bay that we live on or the Gulf of Mexico. You may live in areas that are surrounded by water, and your threats may be very simple to us, very similar to us. Your plans should always start with what your immediate threat is. And like I said, in our area, it's always going to be water. But you might have a wildfire hazard, you might have wind hazards in your area, or you might even have a tornado threats, because that's the predominant threat in your area. The second thing that you should be planning for is not only yourself. If you are caring for another person, and especially if you're caring for somebody with Alzheimer's disease or a related disorder, you have to take in consideration what those needs are. And those needs may be very different for you. So when you're coming up with your plans, you should take that into full consideration. And then also what you should be thinking about is, when you eventually have your plans, is that you should communicate to them. A lot of us live in the great state of Florida, but we have family members that live in other states, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, Iowa, wherever. But they're always worried about us, because a lot of times when we have threats to our area, the news, the national news, paints a picture that's not necessarily as accurate as what we would like it to be, so that it sometimes causes fear with families that live in other parts of the state. So when we're planning about things, we now understand what our threats could be. We have to think about, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? And we have options. Whatever county that you live in and whatever state you live in has an emergency management agency, and they do a really, really good job on planning on what those threats could be. They also provide resources at where you could go. So there's a couple different types of places that you could go and you should take in consideration as part of your plans. First place is a general population shelter. A general population shelter is usually a church, sometimes a school, and it really takes anybody that lives in a very close geographical proximity that would want to take shelter because they don't feel comfortable in their own home or their apartment. The second type of shelter that most counties offer is what they call a special needs shelter. And special needs is really a definition, is a term that defines having needs that you need some assistance with. Sometimes that might be transportation. Sometimes that might be that you're dependent on oxygen and you need to have dedicated power to continue that oxygen. And then sometimes it means that there is a part of that special needs center that could help you if you have a disability of some sort or another. It's important to know with special needs shelters that you have to usually register in advance for them, and don't wait till the last minute. That really is logistically hard on emergency management agencies. But register, fill out those applications, make sure that you do qualify for that, and then you'll have a greater understanding of that special needs shelter. I will tell you that while these counties provide great shelters, general population, special needs shelters, one of the things that you should really highly consider is a host home, or going to a friend's home in a safer location than what your location might be. And especially if you're caring for somebody with Alzheimer's disease or a related disorder, is that sometimes that transition from your own home where structure was already built in and moving to a general population shelter that may have hundreds of other folks in there and a very different environment could cause some agitation, maybe even some aggression with the person that you're caring for. So if you take them to a place that is a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more relaxed, but also in a safe environment, you really could kill two birds with one stone by creating a nice safe space. The third tip that I wanted to talk about is kits. You'll see in all the different types of disaster guides that are out there, no matter where you live, is that they are suggesting that you develop a kit. And there's two different types of kits. If you decide to stay home, you should have a stay-at-home kit. And there's tons of lists out there. I won't go over everything that you should need in there, but you should always take a look at what the lists are so you can incorporate that in your stay-at-home kit. The second type of kit is if you decide that you need to go, you should have a kit that you will take with you. Something that's not super cumbersome, but something that possesses all the essential things that you need when you go to either a host home or you go to a special needs shelter, or if you go to a general population shelter. Medications is something that you should always be thinking about when you are either going to stay home or if you're going to go away. The last thing I'll tell you about kits is that the news talks a great deal about all those different things that you should need in that kit. And one of the things that we find that people get a little flustered over is that they feel that they have to go out and buy all these items at one time so they can populate their kit. Well, that's not necessarily true. Hurricane season is 6 months long, and while we hope at the beginning of the season you start to make your preparation, we know that many of us live on a budget and we can't simply afford to go to a store and buy all those things we need, batteries and flashlights and all that. So piecemeal it. Take your time. Every once in a while, buy yourself one of those items that you would put in your kit. Maybe buy 1 can of soup or some sort of non-perishable food item that you can keep with you at that time. So don't get flustered about the fact that you have to go out and buy all this at one time. There are many ways that you can be easy on your budget and get the things that you need. The last thing I'm going to say, and I brought it up just a little bit in the beginning, is communicate your plan. Now that you've done a good job taking a look at your plan, seeing that if it is going to be the right one for you, if you're going to stay or if you're going to leave, tell somebody about it, predominantly your family. When the news around the nation starts to talk about all the different things that are happening, a lot of fear happens and a lot of concerned people are going to be looking for you at that time. And if they can't get a hold of you, their worst fear is going to dominate their mind. We don't want that. So communicate what your potential plans are, but also communicate what your actual plans are, because your actual plans may change last minute and you may decide to do another thing. But always communicate, you'll never go wrong.
Thanks, Jason. We really need to think about this and be prepared in case of an emergency. Tune in next week for another tip sponsored by Arden Courts, where all they do is memory care. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and have a delicious day.